Welcome to this edition of our Client Spotlight podcast. This episode, we turn the spotlight onto ourselves at Landmark Plc and the University of Arts London as we visit their Fine Art Graduate Show. For nearly a decade, Landmark has awarded the coveted Landmark Fine Art Prize to a recipient at each of the colleges, Wimbledon, Chelsea and Camberwell. In this podcast, we go behind the scenes to speak to the winners themselves, the Dean of Chelsea Art College, George Blacklock, and our Chairman David Todd. We asked David how the award came to be.
It started about 10 years ago when my niece Catherine invited me to her degree show at Wimbledon College of Art. She mentioned at the time that students often found it difficult to provide the funds for their degree catalogue. And having an interest in contemporary art, together with the need to place artwork in our serviced offices, it struck me that a sponsorship might provide a synergy between ourselves and the college, and at the same time help the students in their chosen career.
George Blacklock, Dean of Chelsea College of Art, tells us about the relationship between Landmark Plc and the UAL.
Well, Landmark and I go back a long way because I was Dean of Wimbledon and Landmark came into the university through Wimbledon. So David and Richard came to Wimbledon frequently and we developed a kind of donation that they were very kindly gave to the college at the time, which incorporated assistance to the students for their catalogue and a prize. We developed a prize out of that donation as well. And I don't know whether it was following my move to Chelsea or not, or whether it's more likely that David and Richard wanted to expand on this and they decided to take in both Chelsea and Camberwell into this programme. So we benefit from, each of the colleges benefits from a quantity of money that goes towards the students for their final degree show catalogue, and there is a landmark prize at each college.
So what criteria is there for the prize?
Art, as you know, is very subjective, but we have two or three, I suppose, underlying disciplines and techniques that we look for. One, I guess, is what we might call an intellectual provenance. In other words, the thought process that is applied behind the work, and which is often built up during the graduates or the students' course. Another one, particularly at Wimbledon, which has a long history of drawing disciplines, is technical ability, and a very difficult one to be able to describe. It often screams at you when you look at a piece of work. You just see the quality, and of course visual impact. We all look at various works and decide almost immediately whether we like them or not, and that also applies to the work or the prize winners that we select.
We asked David why each piece won the Fine Art Prize.
We selected one graduate from each of the colleges at Wimbledon, Chelsea and Camberwell. It's, I suppose, if we started with the winner at Wimbledon, Heather Green, she provided three visually stunning canvases, and she displayed an absolute natural understanding of tone and colour. And in addition to the prize, we bought two of her works for the Landmark collection.
Heather talked about her process.
The inspiration kind of originated in just looking at colour, because I was originally kind of doing landscapes at the beginning of this year, and I'm very interested in like nature and kind of like intuitive painting and trying to make things look like things without painting things, which is kind of, like if you look at a cloud and you're like, oh, that's a dog kind of thing, like that, but in a painting, which is really difficult to do. But then my tutor this year was Phil Allen, and he was kind of like, why don't you just try and experiment and kind of let go of the reins a bit and see what you can do. So I went really into colour, and it was all kind of chaotic. And then I was kind of like, there's something missing from them, and they're kind of a bit too pretty, or they were just missing some kind of tension. So that's when the kind of geometric shapes and the linear forms came in, which I looked into for a while. So it was all kind of a developing process. So I'm very much a process painter anyway, so it was good that it developed over the course of the year.
Billy Crosby at Camberwell created exciting and very mature pieces, and I was particularly taken by his work entitled Rapunzel, which was a mixed media acrylic, ceramic and coins on board. Not suitable, unfortunately, in a corporate environment. However, we felt him a very, very worthy winner.
Billy told us about the inspiration for the piece.
In particular, say the inspiration for the shutters, this door piece. One moment, like I was saying, when you get that sort of inspired thing and it really makes you think or makes something turn over, was I saw this massive 15th century French door at the V&A, and a lot of my work is sort of, it had this like huge sort of emotive weight and like sense of time and scale, and it was also very beautiful, sort of like a picture. That's because it was sort of like the real thing, just like pulled out of its time, and it's funny how you like personally like relate to something like that. So my work is sort of a lot about like the theatrical and remaking something, and sort of like a simulation of it, and like how does that, when you can like pick apart something and show the guts of it and like rebuild it, like how do you then have a relationship to it? So this sort of work is then sort of, because it's all fake, it's more sort of fantastical, like I don't know, like a fairy tale-ish, or more sort of theatrical really.
Over at Chelsea, Francis Voss scooped the prize for his work, comprising of 4 beautifully hung silk banners, screen printed with battle reenactments. Again, a highly individual piece, and we unfortunately, again, it wasn't suitable for wall hanging in our offices, but we thought that he was certainly a very worthy winner and stood head and shoulders above many of his peers.
Francis explains the piece.
This piece is 4 sort of fabric hanging pieces that sort of, I suppose, resemble flags or tapestries or something along those lines, and they each depict it's 2 sets of 2 photos, and sort of supposed to represent some kind of delay between each photo. They were taken sort of just a second or 2 apart, and they were taken at the battle reenactment, which was the Battle of Agincourt reenactment that was last summer, which was the 600-year anniversary of that. And I'd just been sort of working with the idea of being a sort of reenactment, just being a strange phenomenon, and sort of kind of a frustrated mode of remembrance, which kind of it sort of fails, but at the same time puts on this amazing kind of theatre, and there was a lot going on in it. So I'd taken this body of photographs, and then I'd worked with these and decided to print them on fabric, just sort of as a material choice to work with. I sort of like the way it hung and sort of crumpled and had this sort of air of slippage or something being a bit more unstable than air.
We asked George what his hopes were for the students graduating.
I want them to control the creative industries. Chelsea is a significant college, both in terms of the national scene and internationally. I think that our alumni will inevitably graduate through in the creative industries to be managing and running those industries eventually.
So what's next for the prize-winning artwork? We asked David where Heather's work would be displayed.
We've earmarked a very prominent wall, and it will form the backdrop to our own main reception. Well, they will form the backdrop. There's 2 canvases, and we're very excited. We can't wait to hang them and invite Heather over to view the work. All of the work that we purchase from students are displayed in our offices, and all of the students are invited to come and see them in situ.
So that's it for our special arts podcast. You can look at all the work featured in the podcast on our supporting blog. We'd like to thank all the artists and George Blacklock for taking time to contribute to this episode.